When we experience significant trauma, the body responds with what is known as the fight or flight response. And this is basically a release of energy into our system to enable us to either fight or to run for our lives. Now, those options aren't always available to us, particularly if the trauma occurs in our formative years. And when those options aren't viable, there's a third option, and this is complete immobilization or the freeze response. And when this occurs, the potential energy that was available to us for our fight or flight becomes trapped within our system. Likewise, our emotional response, which is often too intense for us to tolerate in the moment, becomes repressed and pushed down in the body, and we carry it with us into our adult life and into our adult relationships. And this can manifest itself in so many symptoms, and I suppose this list isn't exhaustive, nor is it necessarily indicative of how trauma had occurred. However, things like sleep difficulties, dysfunction in relationships, always feeling that you have to be busy, always feeling tense and anxious, an inability to relax, an inability to concentrate or to focus for prolonged periods, being hypersensitive to lights, to noises, to caffeine, being hypervigilant, dissociating or nearly switching off from your life, and having real difficulties with emotional regulation. Now, not only that, but we tend to be drawn to recreate or reenact our traumatic experiences. So it's like as if we're compulsed to find situations that are similar to what happened, or that we think are similar to what happened, so that we experience the feelings again. And it's like as if we're subconsciously seeking out opportunities to heal. And these are actually opportunities to heal, except oftentimes we don't recognize that. We experience the negative feelings, we feel like it's safe, we feel like it's scary, and it's what we know. So this is why we're so attracted to it, despite the fact that it doesn't serve us. And this is how so many people end up in relationships that don't meet their needs, or careers that don't meet their needs, or end up either in relationships that are abusive or are neglectful. And I suppose we always have this kind of need for connection. We're literally hardwired for connection, but when our nervous system has been damaged, that twigs itself a little bit, and we become wired for protection. So then when somebody very kind and benevolent comes into our life, we really struggle with it. They're the ones that we tend to put the guard up with, and they're the ones who ultimately could help us. So it can be a very confusing, distressing, painful way of life. And I suppose it's about understanding the level of distortion that you can experience when you have been a victim of trauma, or when you have suffered trauma at some stage, and how important it is that you get help to fully process it, to release the energy, to I suppose experience it at a very physical and emotional level in order for you to be freed. And you know, they say that a trauma is like hell on earth, but trauma resolved is like a gift from the gods. And I think it's so true. And I know possibly at the beginning of the journey, that's not what you want to hear. It may feel like, Jesus, what did I ever do to deserve this? But if you can manage to move through it, if oftentimes we see a gift in our suffering, it gives us a level of insight and enlightenment and acceptance that possibly we wouldn't have experienced if the trauma hadn't occurred. And I'm not saying that you have to have experienced trauma to live an amazing life, but I'm just saying that if you can try and change your slant on it from, oh God, you know, my life is never going to be any good because of this, to my life is going to be good because of this, then it can help get us to a place where we see the purpose of transformation, where we see the purpose of healing, and where we can see beyond, I suppose, the difficulties involved in healing, and instead focus on the growth that is available to us. If you are struggling, get in touch with me on my website. It's fundamentals.ie.